The Chancellor's autumn statement this Wednesday is expected to be pretty low on giveaways, as some query whether the economic cost of Brexit means the UK economy is in for a tough run, no matter what Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, announces. Well, Labour MP Chuka Umunna is a former shadow business secretary and a supporter of the Open Britain campaign. Conservative Dominic Raab is member of the Exiting the EU committee and was a Leave campaigner, of course. And a very good morning to you both, gentlemen. I'm sure you've got different views on what Mr Hammond should do. And I want to start with you, Dominic Raab, and it's that basic point. Do you recognise this figure of £100 billion that the OBR is going to tell us that the Treasury is going to have to borrow extra over the next 5 years?
Well, we don't know what the OBR is going to say. What we do know...
What do you recognise a large figure?
Well, I don't know, but the forecasts have all been proved wrong so far. The IMF, the Bank of England and the official statistics have all gone back on those forecasts. So let's wait and see. What we know, hard developments in the economy. Last week alone, employment at record highs, inflation dipping below 1%, notwithstanding the devaluation of sterling, and Google, the latest company to announce £1 billion of extra investment. So let's not have this endless pessimism. Actually, the headline is, from all of this, that the economy is far more resilient.
Endless pessimism, the Chancellor's just been talking about an eye-wateringly large debt.
Well, no, I think those are words that have been put in national debt terms. Yes, of course, because until we've got the deficit...
borrowing adds to the debt.
Yes, but until we've got the deficit down, we've always known, we've had this debate since 2010, we're not going to really get to grips with national debt. So he's right. I mean, I support him being a fiscal hawk, but the economic resilience of the economy post-Brexit has frankly confounded the pessimists.
That point, Chuka Umunna, this £100 billion that's been floated around, the cost over 5 years, might be wrong, says Dominic Raab.
Well, I mean, he's right in the sense of these being forecasts, but on the Treasury's own forecasts, we know that they think that if, for example, we were to come out of the EU customs union and end up trading with the EU and the rest of the world on WTO rules, we would be looking at least a £66 billion hit per year on what comes into the exchequer. Now, I've just quoted a big number, but that's far bigger than, say, what we spend on education. But look,
where'd you get it from?
The priority here in this autumn statement is to ensure that if you work hard, you play by the rules, you do the right thing, whatever your background, you and your family see the rewards. Now, even before we voted to leave the European Union, this was not happening in the last Conservative-led coalition. It's certainly not happening in this Parliament. Now, the question is, does Brexit make it more or less easy to resolve that issue? I would argue, and you can see, that it makes it less. Look, and I'll give you a reason, very tangible reason why. If you look at the depreciation in sterling, it means that the things that we import are costing a lot more. So your viewers, when they're going to buy things in the shop, imported goods, they are paying more for that.
Well, that's come through. I mean, on the hard figures, which is what I'm looking for, that's come through in the balance of payments figures, hasn't it? The first quarter since Brexit, not much change.
Well, let's nail that.
Hang on just a minute. Since the last autumn statement, sterling's depreciated by around 21%. But the really big fall, particularly after we left we voted to leave the European Union, came around October because of uncertainty about the way in which we're going to be able to trade with the rest of the world. So that's a very tangible way in which actually the uncertainty coming from the Brexit vote is impacting on your viewers. And I have to say that my biggest issue here is traditionally...
Let's have a debate.
Go.
Yeah.
Go on.
We've got to
tell me why I'm wrong,
I just want to throw in another tangible number. This is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
We're throwing some big numbers around, but this on the business survey, CEBR, last week, of 1,000 businesses, £65 billion of investment on hold. That's what businesses have said.
Well, first of all, by the way, in terms of the record of the government, nearly 3 million new jobs since 2010 and 3 million of the lowest paid workers taken out of income tax. I think that's a pretty good record to build on. But actually, in terms of inflation, there is a risk here because of the devaluation of sterling. But what have we just seen last week? Inflation dipping below 1%. So let's not... these forecasts that it would go through the roof have certainly not materialised on the facts yet. In terms of the city and business confidence, actually, I thought it was remarkable hearing both Carolyn Fairbairn, head of the CBI, and John Longworth, former head of the British Chamber of Commerce, on the BBC today, both talking about the opportunities of Brexit, particularly around trade. And I think there's a huge amount of evidence of
But
that.
do you accept? I
But
mean, there
hang
are
on just a
plenty
minute.
of people on the Leave side who do say this. Say, look, there might be a short-term hit, but in the long run, it'll be worth it. I mean, would you endorse those comments?
Oh, there is definitely some short-term risks and some uncertainty. And of course, until businesses see at least the contours of the negotiation, some decisions are on hold. But let's not turn that into a boundless
But hang on a minute,
pessimism.
This is democracy. The people have chosen. They knew that
This-
it might take a
this is
short-term hit, but in
ridiculous.
the long run, things will be better.
This is ridiculous. That the reason why the forecasts and the data are not as bad as people thought they would be back in August is because of the aggressive monetary policy measures that the Bank of England and the governor introduced, increasing quantitative easing, reducing interest rates. And what happened to the governor as a result of that? He had calls for his head, calls for his resignation. Now the question is,
one of the global elite.
what should Philip Hammond do on Wednesday? First of all, we should make good on the promise that many of those who campaigned for us to leave gave to the country and your viewers, that if we left the European Union, we'd be put on a path to putting £350 million extra per week into our NHS. So that's one thing. Secondly, yes, it was.
Wrong.
Secondly,
we made very clear well before the referendum.
you stood by
the
this
campaign
bus where you all said,
this is a problem.
vote to
This is
leave.
precisely
I think
the
we have a
problem.
lot of
350
money.
million
It
into
is
the
the
EU.
scratched record of the old debate. Let's move forward. I'd love to work with
Why
Chuka.
should you
He
walk
was
away
one of
from
the
your
more
promise?
Nothing more
sensible
money should be
voices.
put into the
I
NHS.
want more money to go in the
We
NHS.
said-
You campaigned for that to happen.
But we said 150 million out of it when we were pressed.
Oh, it's 150 now?
Yeah, we talked about that. It was
What happened to
very
the
clear.
350 on the
But
bus?
do you think that should happen
What about the
this
bus?
Wednesday?
The 350 million.
I said, look, as a campaign, we think this is the kind of thing we could do with the money we'll get back. But of course, it's for the elected government to decide. I still stand by that. But what we really ought to be
But that's
doing...
Jan tomorrow. That's when the UK formally leaves the EU. You don't think the Chancellor should act now?
On the NHS?
On the NHS.
No, I think you've got to wait for that money to accrue before we start spending money we don't have. That's Labour's, original sin, if you like. But
Well,
the
hang on
truth
just a minute.
is,
On that,
what we ought
we
to
need
be
to...
doing...
We need
Chuck,
to...
Right, just let Dominic Raab finish, and this will have to be the last point.
The country's gone from the very polarised split to 3-1 in favour of according to YouGov this week, to the extent we can trust polls at all, making it work. So what we should do is not repeat and reheat the referendum debate, lock horns, work together, yes, mitigate the risk, but also seize the opportunity.
The decision's taken, Chuka Umunna. That's what we're saying. Let's all work together.
It is, but people like Dominic need to deliver on their promises. If they say they're going to put £350 million extra per week into the NHS, which they all did, then they should deliver it. But also, look, we are in turbulent economic conditions here. I think you can't just leave the Bank of England to do all this work. You do need fiscal policy to operate. So I think the Chancellor should consider cutting VAT to boost demand in the medium term, because we've got choppy waters ahead. He should improve investment in innovation,
Do we at least accept
business investment
the IMF
in
has
these,
gone from saying
in
we'll
these
have
things,
recession
because otherwise
to saying
we're
we'll be
not
the
going to be able
fastest growing
to
economy
attack
in the G7.
productivity
Do you know what? We're going to
shortfall we have.
continue this conversation when we've got the figures on Wednesday.
Very
I'm
good.
sure you'll be in all the studios.